the Ordinary Council meeting of the 16th of July 2019. And in the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the side entrance and gather at the designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. All councillors and staff, speakers tonight, are required to speak into the microphone. You may need to move the microphone close to ensure you're heard and you are recorded on live streaming. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Councillor Munro.
Munro?
Move it.
Moved. Councillor Duffy, a seconder, please. Councillor Taylor, all in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you. This council meeting has been live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. It will be made for administrative purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? None. There are no mayoral minutes. Just before I open for the conduct of the open forum, we have three speakers tonight. I would just like to acknowledge the sad passing of Councillor Whitten's mum. I would like us all to stand for a minute. Thank you. Now I adjourn the council meeting for the conduct of the open forum. And our first speaker this evening is Kerry Ferguson from 2 Lily Pilly Place. It's in regards to DA 91/2019. Thanks, Kerry.
Mr Mayor and councillors, probably lost cause, but just want to express our disappointment at the development of 6 two-bedroom units in a very quiet cul-de-sac, possibly only ever 8 homes in it, and the number is now 14, and concerned about the look and the overall the design of the development, and maybe if it could be redesigned to 3 or 4 units, probably be a little bit more acceptable. Others have got other things to say, so I'll leave it to them.
Thanks, Kerry. And look, I'd just like to acknowledge Kerry too. Kerry was a long-serving servant of Orange City Council and looks younger and fitter than she ever looked working here, so it's good retirement for you, Kerry. Congratulations. Our second speaker is Brett Grant, 3 Lily Pilly Place, Orange, and 3 the development application DA 91/2019. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors. On behalf of myself and my wife, Caroline, and with Kerry and behalf of Kerry and Roy and Chris and Jody as well. We're all here for the one cause together. Myself and my wife, we first looked at the plans for Vista Heights in March last year. Actually signed with our builder DWP Homes in April 2018. We were attracted to the area because it was a quiet cul-de-sac. We saw the plans. It had Vista Heights at that stage. There was 6 other blocks, and with the increase to 9 other lots with the planning of the Northern Gardens, which is upcoming development there. So at that stage, we had the attraction to the cul-de-sac and the advantages of that. We assumed that all the lots would be similar to us, 4-bedroom homes, or mainly one dwelling per lot, and it'd be in keeping with the rest of the neighbourhood. From the plan, we could see that lot 12 and 13, which is our 5 Lillypilly, were a lot larger, but we assumed that they would have maybe more larger, substantial single home dwellings on them. But we do have concerns, which are going to be aired by all 3 of us here tonight, traffic and parking. One of the main concerns we have, increased noise from these developments, from the potential having 6 units there. Privacy concerns as well. More our direct neighbours, Chris and Jody, but there'll be privacy concerns for everybody there. So we'd really like council to consider if they're possible for modification of the proposal, if there could be a decrease, if that's the way it could be, to less units for less impact on the look of the street and the effect of all those detrimental concerns we have as well. I'll leave it fairly brief and go to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Third speaker is Chris Wood, 4 Lillypilly Place, 3 the DA 91/2019. Thanks, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm here on behalf of my beautiful wife Jody and my 3 beautiful sons, Bryce, Dylan and Ashton. Like these guys, we bought, probably a bit naive, but we did buy thinking there were going to be 9 separate blocks, Lillypilly. And the day we got our settlement, it was quite disheartening to find out there was a development going in. When I listed my original objections, I was more worried about the infrastructure for the street. I still see increased traffic flow as a major problem. I see waste distribution as a definite problem. Something I'm definitely fearful for my family is privacy. We were thinking with the screening and the higher fence, we would be right. But thank you to any of the councillors that have made the effort to come out and actually look at what we'll be living with. If you can see the elevation of what BT Homes are currently constructing as a demonstration house, if it follows that same height pattern, we're going to be living in a fishbowl. Where people will be looking out from both angles, we'll look directly into my kids' activity area, the kids' playgroup, the kids' toilet, back on by the new developments that will also back on directly to a viewing point that includes our living areas, our kitchen, our alfresco and our dining. There's just no privacy. It's something that just genuinely concerns me. It's going to be very hard to bring up 3 children under that environment because we're an outdoors active family. We love fresh air, sunshine, and it's actually been quite hard physically and emotionally on both myself and my wife. What should have been the most enjoyable and happiest period in buying a house that we're quite happy with has become a sour experience. It's left me deeply concerned and dubious about ever buying and developing land again, and has definitely left a sour taste. I echo Kerry's sentiments 100%. We can't hold up progress. There is a place for affordable housing. But with massive congestion, I'm looking at the plans now. One visitor parking, I'm fearful. If you have a look at these stack sheds, think about it. I've been trying to unpack a shed for the last probably 8-9 weeks, and I'm just going around in circles. We've got no garage. We're still on the driveway. You know, that's just a working family doing their best. So you got to potentially, that's not even going to happen in some of these units. If people have downsized, people are divorced, that's going to be storage. So it's on the absolute thin scale. The 1.2 people or the 1.2 car spaces that this is developed around shouldn't impact the 2.3 children that some town planner has said that is the norm. This is what we're basing it on. We bought here because of green space. We bought here because it was a quality area. We bought there because there were 9 houses. Naively, I will admit, but I think we can do better. The current existing plans, I see it over congested. And going back onto the parking aspect, we need visitor parking. It's all well and good to say that they've got stacking parking and stuff like that. Put a state of origin in the equation. Just the other night, you know, I was lucky enough to go down to the game with my sons, but a lot of my friends went round to see other friends. There were driveways full. You know, just something totally out of the ordinary like that. We're going to have nowhere to park. Currently, I have a work vehicle and 2 car spaces, so we can't afford to give any of our frontage up. The bulb end of the cul-de-sac, that's basically going to turn into a car space. I'm genuinely concerned with the current spading of car fires, and, you know, apologies for what you guys have gone through recently. I think we'll be a sitting target coming off the bypass and somewhere like that. So I've got a genuine safety concern. The increased traffic flow on 3 driveways, if you came and had a look at it, we're a big fan of cul-de-sac life. We bought into it for a short flow. That little basketball ring, that's going to be packed up. You know, my guys just going for a bike ride could potentially be a nightmare. And what's going on in the Northern Gardens, that's something to be excited about. You guys have actually planned in a bit of green space, footpaths, just somewhere that we really wanted to buy into and just help the kids grow, develop, just fresh air. I think once we start going bulb ends of cul-de-sacs with that extra traffic flow, it's an OHS nightmare. We're going to potentially fill our street with a lack of guest parking and visitor parking. And on top of that, we're looking for all sorts of congestion dramas. I was a courier for years, and the units they had at Autumn Street, Spring Street, Nile Street was far superior with guest parkings, and quite frankly helped me get out when I had a van in a tight space a few times too. So, yeah, I do genuinely worry. Waste refuse, I see it was genuinely a concern because it does blow a gale there. I see that you guys, the guys have amended it so that J.R. Richards are going to basically remove only a few bins will come out front. I commend you for that, but I still don't see anything that's sort of bricked in and permanent. I think it could be Rafferty's rules if you get a few rough tenants. Yeah, I think it definitely needs a bit more concern and a bit more focus with the whole waste environment thing. I'd hate nothing more than to see that green space that we bought for just turn into a dumping ground, and you know, it's definitely got the potential to do it. So I think if it all goes well, good luck. If you get your neighbours, good luck. But I see a lot of problems, guys. Your extra parking, your traffic, and your waste. But the main thing that's going to impact my guys is lot 102. What I'll have a window that'll look directly over every possible angle that my family's young development, and we can't live in a fishbowl, guys. I thank you very much all for your time, and special thanks to anyone that's come out and sort of assessed the situation. It's appreciated given your busy time. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Council meeting resumes now, and first of all we have 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 2nd of July.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Hamling, second Councillor Romano. All in favour? Show your hands, please. Against? Thank you. No notices of motion or rescission motions. We'll move on to 5, which are general reports. First of all, 5.1. 5.1 is recommendations and resolutions from the policy committees.
Move the recommendations. Mayor.
Moved Councillor Newton, second Councillor Turner. All in favour? Show of hands, please. Sorry.
No, I'm up. I just want a matter arising, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah. All in favour? Against? Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Mr. Mayor,
I didn't see you.
I've ran into a few people about the reports on the weekend about our water situation. There was reports saying that we had about 3 to 6 months left at some stage. Could I just get an update to reassure everyone how much water we do have left?
Get Mr Wardell to do
I'll do that. We've had a lot of discussions over the last 48 hours, 24
several
hours.
meetings.
Several meetings, including with the Drought Commissioner. For the ABC to say that Orange, I think, had 6 months left concerned us greatly. And Mr Beattie today confirmed that if you went for a pure number with no inflows, no rain whatsoever, you're talking more like 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, that's correct, because we're looking at a pure number with demand management in place.
So the ABC was a year out.
Exactly.
Mayor has made his feelings on that.
If I can, I've made feelings quite clear to the ABC, so it could be the end of my gardening show, I'd say. And I've got a response from the regional manager, and I've got it from their state manager, and an apology. Will be a retraction show tomorrow, and we've had some meetings about it on a whole range of things, but that's quite correct. We're looking at 12 to 18 months. If it never rained again, nothing come down, nothing actually happened. And so it was very, very naughty, and it was a bit sensationalised, a little bit, I suppose, like the story on Four Corners, but a lot better if it was a balanced story and not biased one way. And if anyone watches Media Watch last night, ABC copped a fair hiding off the ABC's Media Watch last night for not giving a balanced position. And I think just keep in mind monthly that we get a report here on our consumptive use per household, right through to what we have in storage, know what bore capacity and looking at using bores and that. We get reports on our stormwater harvesting. It's just even that rain, not last week, the week before, we harvested it off that. And so I'd rather be here than a lot of other places in the state, I can tell you, particularly close to us.
And Mr Chair, I think we need to make the point that the engineering team is working on several projects that will add to that number. We'll be reporting back to Council soon on some of those initiatives.
A couple of those were Councillor Taylor asked a couple of things we looked at. Those reports will be back in very, very shortly. One of them sitting on my desk there at the moment. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr Mayor. Also, on the weekend, I think it was 2EL on Sunday, they were running a story which was, I think, lifted out of the Sunday papers about a number of water, and they were included Orange in that. And the figures that were quoted weren't certainly what I'd believe. And there was a lady who rang up from Cobar and said, look, they'll be going on tighter restrictions, and people up in Cobar could be restricted back to something like 106 per person. Well, Mr Mayor, we're running, I think, at the moment, average of 165 litres per
I think
resident
it's
in
about
Orange.
142, actually.
142. So I think level 4 that we're on at the moment is something like an allowance of 212. Is that correct? Something like that. So we're way, way above where we should be. So I think, again, we heard about the ABC's report and that shocked me. And but I think, again, it reinforces how water-wise the community.
Well, Councillor, look, sorry to just go on about it. I can assure you today that yesterday that the various media, various government departments have been told quite firmly to check their facts, and it would be courteous just to contact the council here. We were only too happy to give them that information in black and white, not make assumptions that are quite erroneous. And, as you would know, concern people. I have no doubts about that, but anonymous. So thanks very much for that. Okay, we move down to, we've 5.2, which is an update on outstanding resolutions of council, including questions taken on notice.
Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Hamley, second Councillor Duffy. All in favour, show of hands. And we've got a question arising from Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Matter arising, or a couple of matters arising. Page 37, initially the grey-haired flying fox camp. Just out of interest, we received in the mail today a survey form from the University of Melbourne. They're doing some research on flying foxes and their management across Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. And it says the aim of the project is to understand how urban flying fox camps or roosts are currently being managed, which approaches are effective in different contexts, and how the community feels about the bats and these inventions. So I might just refer that. We're planning to respond to the research project survey, which has been sent to that are living nearby the flying fox camps. So it's probably worth noting that and following the outcome of that research. The second one was page 59 in relation to the climate emergency motion. Just to note that when we debated that topic back on the 25th of June, I think there was about 640 jurisdictions around the world that had declared a climate emergency. That number's now up to 792 in 17 countries, covering 140 million people. So there's been sort of quite a dramatic increase in a relatively short space of time. But more importantly, just in terms of a local context, Sally Neves from the Rahaman Centre in Bathurst, who has been trained in the Climate Reality Project, which is the Al Gore originated project, training people in climate reality or climate change leadership.
How's this a matter of arising?
I'm just, it's a matter arising because it's a matter arising from that item.
Well, what I suggest with something like this would be a very, very good one to bring back to the appropriate director and get it circulated to all the councillors and be part of it. Or the next person will get up and say the opposite. So I don't think it's part of the debate.
Okay, well, Sally's offered to do a briefing, which I believe will be happening the week beginning the 29th of July, which is before our next meeting. So I'd just like to extend an invitation. Once those details come through, I'll pass them on to all the councillors if you'd like to come along and hear what Sally has to say on this particular issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, haven't we been advised of that meeting already?
Hold it. I think that's what I just said. 5.3 is a statement of investments, June 2019. Move Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Taylor. Hands, please. All show your hands. It's very important now. Against, thank you. Matter arising.
Matter arising. Yeah, so I have asked previously about the processes for making decisions about investment of our $150 million in public funds. I know that this report, it tells us about Imperium Markets being on page 67, being providing advice on policy construction, and providing advice as to where we put our money, where we invest our money. I understand we have a council investment policy, which I understand is an internal policy. It's not a strategic policy, so it doesn't sort of come to councillors. I think I'm right in saying that. But as a councillor, I am interested in how and where we invest our $150 million public funds.
I suggest then, Councillor Nugent, hold it at any time, you may go to that director, sit down with that director, and I know that's been mentioned in this chamber on several occasions, that you can go in and secondly, sitting next door to you is the chairperson that I know you're quite familiar with, Finance.
Which I have discussed it with Councillor McRae.
And she couldn't answer the question, is that right?
So
All right, well, I'd suggest that both of you have a meeting with the appropriate director.
I was going
She'll
to
make an appointment.
ask if it's possible to have a brief report about the processes and the criteria that we consider in making our investments. If I could make that request.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask Councillor McRae the question. Have you asked that question of the appropriate director?
I was only asked the question tonight by Councillor Nugent, and I'm actually not aware of the process by which we've appointed Imperium Markets, nor their qualifications or the ethical investing basis. So opportunity that I'll learn a lot too from that report.
Very, very good. I look forward to hearing back from both. That's the end of general reports. The Acting General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received. Oh, sorry, my mistake. 5.5 development application. Sorry,
5.4.
5.5 DA 91/2019 in brackets 5 Lily Pilly Place.
Mayor, I was wondering if we could maybe defer this one for to go back to the designer for a redesign of maybe 5 units on that block.
Happy to second that, Mr Chairman.
The reason I do this, can I keep talking?
Yeah, hold it. We have a mover and a seconder. I will just ask. Go ahead, it's a motion.
Right.
Yep.
Either 5 or 4. I'm just looking at that photo on page 75 with all those units. You know, that one down the front on the left-hand side there looks like it's just been squashed in there where, you know, that could alleviate some of the residents' problems about with parking. So, yeah, I'd like to defer this for a redesign if possible.
Hamling? No, I've got a second. Yeah, anyone else?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I just want to support Councillor Hemming in that there. I listened to what the speakers had to say, and I've spoken to a number of them beforehand. You look at the issues of which has come up time and time again as to an overdevelopment of a small cul-de-sac. I mean, I don't know whether we should be addressing the issue in our LEP and our state planning laws and all those type of things there, because, I mean, our LEP, it's going to happen in the south as well, these small cul-de-sacs where people go and buy into them, and they think, okay, we're going to retire there and live happily ever after, and they want to be there. But then all of a sudden there's this multi-dwelling place turns up where there's 6 there, and in a small cul-de-sac, which is very common up around the William Maker Drive area there, totally the concept of the whole area changes. The ambience changed, the issue of traffic, parking, kids playing in the street and all those, the safety issues there. I have a huge problem with it. Hopefully the staff will go back and ask for a redesign there to whatever it is. But I also have a problem with the actual real estate agents, and I think wonder with the state local government conference coming up, whether our staff can put together some resolution that we start to put a bit of onus on the real estate agents in selling these blocks of land, so what could actually happen to those type of things there. Now, whether that can happen or not, I don't know, but there's no harm in us trying down that pathway. But I just want to...
Thanks, Councillor Taylor.
Mr Mayor, look, I have major concerns here, and I mean the one that really concerned me was that people who have bought and have built their properties in cul-de-sac. I mean, they've looked obviously at a plan, and the plans were for residential blocks. It concerns me that then we have 2 residential blocks brought into one, brought back into one, and we have effectively 6 units on, well, 3 units on what would be normally a residential housing block. It really does, the rights of residents really does concern me with this. I'd like to see it. I know that's probably going to cause problems, but I think it's an overdevelopment, and I think I'll put a question back probably to Mr. Waddell on this, or Mr. Hodges. As far as purchase of 2 residential blocks and then coming back to what is effectively pretty high density development on what is
I'll get
effectively two
Mr.
normal
Hodges
sized
to-
residential blocks, because it really does concern me, and I think I agree with Councillor Duffy. We maybe need to look at this as
Hodges. Mr. Hodges first, just answer the question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to how it can happen, it's as reported there, it's under exempt development, so state law permits consolidation of blocks when they're compliant. So that's what the developer's done in this case. On their own, 800 square metre blocks would have been able to have dual occupancies on them, and by taking the action of consolidating down, that's how he's increased to the to be able to use multi-dwelling housing on this property, where he's got his 6 from. So that's how he's done it, but it's certainly been permissible.
Sorry, Mr.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with both our councillors, Taylor, Duffy. I mean, as we're all aware, regards to dual occupancy, it's allowable over 800 metres, and unit development is allowable over 1,250 metres. And what the applicant has done is joined both two blocks together, which is about 800 square metres each. My concern, like the other councillors, is that what was the original intent or the spirit of the cul-de-sac in the first place? I mean, people have already built houses. My understanding, most of their blocks are around 750, which is under the 800, which would allow dual occupancy. But I believe that council have created the problem for these people by allowing, whether it's the state government, council, I'm not sure who's responsible, but allowing a developer or an applicant to join two blocks together. I'm sure that anybody who bought in that cul-de-sac would have probably been content to see dual occupancy on a couple of those blocks, two houses. When you then combine two blocks and you've got 6 all of a sudden, well, that, in my opinion, has created a problem, and it's creates a problem because it's not in keeping with the area or the intent of the original cul-de-sac. So that's one of the first problems that I have. And as I think it was Councillor Taylor said, will allowing this type of development create a precedent in other areas of Orange? So, for argument's sake, what is to say now, unless there's a covenant on a subdivision, what is stopping anybody else going and buying two 800 square metre blocks, which are vacant, and doing exactly the same thing when people have already invested life savings, probably the biggest decision I'll ever make with the money in their life, to allow a developer to go in there and do this to them? So what I'm wondering, and it's probably directed to question to one of the directors, is there a possibility that council can impose a covenant on all future subdivisions to prevent this type of issue from occurring in the future? I know that we have covenants on areas such as Sherrill where the houses have to be set back 17 or 17.5 metres to create this open, lovely environment. Not so up here in North Orange, trying to stack as many houses as we can in some areas. We have created the problem, or the state government have created the problem. State government, thank you. You are correct. And it's created a problem because it's not in keeping with the area. Yes, it does comply, but that isn't the spirit of why these people have bought there.
I'll just answer that through in about covenant.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to take that question on notice in relation to the effect of a covenant on the state environmental planning policy for exempt and complying development. Because that's a civil provision or a requirement or out of the Conveyancing Act, the covenants for restricting that is out of a different piece of legislation to the state environmental planning policy. So the state policy I would expect would potentially override it, but then there would be potential civil action for those party to that covenant. But it's one I'll have to take on notice and get back to you on.
Thank you. I understand that. So are you saying that anybody who's bought land up in Sherrill or any property developers who bought land can now combine two blocks together and do exactly the same thing? if they own.
I'd have to look at Shirley, can't answer that one, but
Because there is
if there's
certain
no
covenants on
restrictions
Shirley.
on the land,
Yeah.
then you fall to the state planning policy, which does permit the consolidation of allotments as long as they meet the minimum standards.
Is against the spirit of the area. What we're trying to create up at Cheryl Lee is setting the houses back 17.5 metres from the curb, create this open surveillance as we would know it.
Different development control plans down there that has its own individual one. This one is particularly relating to the size of the block. So it still has to comply with our DCP for standard residential development. But the local environmental plan sitting over the top of that is where it sits the minimum lot size. And that's for us, before us tonight, with the terms of assessing this one, of saying minimum lot size for units, multi-dwelling housing, is 1,250 square metres.
Thank you. I look forward to the response.
Going to get back to Councillor Whitten.
Mr Mayor, yeah, I think covenants have no legal standing on. They're a different thing. They don't appear on searches when they do a search, right? That's my understanding. Mr Mayor, we've been here before, many years ago, even when I was sitting in that chair as the planning chairman. Dual locks were the most painful thing that this council had to deal with. And if I recall from that time, we did decide on the DCPs and the LEPs that we would make it clear on our new subdivisions that certain land would be earmarked for certain types of allowable buildings. And the new subdivisions, so that real estate agents and new prospective buyers, when they were buying land in that area, knew if there was a school going in there, if there was a childcare facility going in there, if there was a church going in there, or if there was dual locks allowable in those subdivisions. Now, today, in a brand new subdivision, people have purchased land in an environment which they believe to be single home housing blocks, traditional housing blocks, where a developer, and rightly so, legally, allowed to buy land, put forward under the New South Wales planning laws, an application that allows them to build these types of units. But it's a matter for council for us to go back to our LEPs and our DCPs and start enforcing them as the way we thought. Now, I'm sure the director will tell us that, and probably New South Wales planning law overrides anything we decide to do. But sooner or later, we need to draw a line in the sand, the council, say that we want to have a stronger say in our community about what is built, where it's built, and what type of building is built there. Checked. Not just we don't want to just protect. What about all about the developers and their investments in growing the city? We've still got to protect those people who are residents of our community, who've already invested in this city, already have children in this city, and bought housing in an area that they believe that they could raise a family or stay forever without being impacted by other dwellings enforced upon them by New South Wales planning. And we're going to see later on that a dwelling on Forbes Road potentially may go to the JRPP and take that decision about that dwelling right out of the hands of council and the community of Orange. So I think we need to revisit it, and I support the motion, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Nugent.
Look, I'm happy to support the motion to go back and ask for, to defer it and to go back and ask for a redesign. I guess I'm just interested in what happens if the developer says, well, no, I'm not. I don't want to redesign. I want to sort of consider it on the current basis. When I first saw this, I had some sort of sympathy for this development in the sense of last meeting we talked about there was a letter from Housing Plus about the shortage of affordable housing, and this is a number of houses, smaller houses on smaller blocks, which presumably will be, cheaper housing to buy and may meet that need for affordable housing to some extent. But I also hear from the local residents about their expectations and what they had in mind when they bought there. And I do see that this is a very intensive development and could still meet that need for affordable housing with less intensive development. I do note under the DCP, and I take the points that, it's the DCP which allows this, and the DCP would allow, even if those lots weren't bought by the same developer and combined, they would allow dual occupancy, I think, under the DCP. So there could be 4 houses on those blocks anyway, but 6 does seem to be a bit over the top. So, but getting back to the question about what happens, go and ask for a redesign and it doesn't happen.
Oh, look, we've done this before, councillors. What will happen if this motion gets up? We will formally contact the applicant, tell them about the motion and the spirit of the motion and what you've raised. Times they've said no, and it comes straight back to you in its current form. Sometime developers say yes, and we'll get a redesign proposal back to you.
Councillors, I'm going to put the vote. No one has spoken against the motion, so we're going. No.
like
We've
to
had
speak-
all
I'll
speak. You're going to speak for. You're going to speak for it. Against it. Okay.
Look, there's some concerns I have in us deferring a motion which, the original recommendation, which is for a complying development. And I agree that a number of issues have been addressed regarding the spirit of what we've developed and what the DCP says. I actually would suggest that we would actually have a refusal, and it could be based on the departure from the private open space requirements, which it does not meet. They are outlined on page 94 and 95. So that may in fact give us an opportunity for a refusal and require a redesign, rather than a deferral hoping that the developer will find in his heart a reason to be the good guy, when what we have is a recommendation, according to staff, of a complying development. I would also be interested in when the opportunity arises for council to update the DCP and LEP to eliminate this occurring.
And I suggest to you could put that up as a foreshadow.
And secondly, I would also be interested, as a number of the speakers tonight have addressed, what is council's role in advising buyers of vacant properties and the possible developments that may occur in their neighbourhoods. I would think that everybody who lives in North Orange and those new estates would be very well aware themselves of the unit developments and the dual occupancies that have popped up around them. But for those who are coming in and trusting the real estate agents who are doing their jobs to try to sell properties, what is council's role in advising those potential buyers of the opportunities that developers may take surrounding those homes? Foreshadowed motion is not something I'm familiar with procedurally, and I might leave that to perhaps some advice from more experienced councillors.
Move it as an amendment, if you.
Moment, please, councillors.
I move we put the motion.
Yep. We have motion that was moved by Councillor Hamling and seconded by Councillor Duffy. If that is passed, that will then go down the line that we said. If that is lost, we have the motion that's in here, or the recommendation that's in here, and you could refuse that. You could amend it, no. Yep, that's so. All in favour of? Just want to get it ready up to you.
Read the motion. Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Duffy, that the item be deferred and further discussion take place with the applicant as to a redesign. Okay, everyone's familiar. All in favour, show of hands. Against? So, okay. Okay.
Rising, Mr. Chairman. I touched on it in the in the debate. Was the fact is, I do believe, I understand why the step is there, because you've got councils in Sydney. They're going to go from 300,000 people to 600,000 people in 10 or 20, 30 years. they need to have this legislation issued by the state government, to get things to happen. I think our situation we wouldn't be the only ones. It would be Wagga, it would be Dubbo, it would be Bathurst, and we'd find ourselves in the same situation of what is actually happening here. And I just wonder if the staff could look at something to come back with, for us to go to the Local Government Association conference and raise the matter as a matter of discussion, how we can address this type of situation, which we did have the joining of the two associations, which was a city and country thing, which made the one association. So this is an opportunity for us to our country tag and say, hey, listen, people, we want you to back out of this one and let us sort our own issue out.
Yeah, we'll certainly do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mayor,
you've got a question or a matter?
I do actually. Just looking at the value of the proposed development, that's excellent value for money there. I'm just wondering whether there's any possibility or appetite council to ask the developer to tender for the new toilets in Robinson Park.
Very, very soily comment. The Acting General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been made or received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
There are no written submissions, Mr Chair.
I extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a representation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government Act (General) Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A (2) of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and to the public. (6.1) is no longer going ahead this evening. That's been withdrawn. Excuse me. 6.2 is the tender for the collection and processing of used mattresses. 6.3, sale of 61 Casey Street, Orange. And 6.4 is the lease of Hangar W at the Orange Airport. These items are classified as confidential under the provisions of Section 10A (2) information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Now, pause. Folks, you have to leave the chambers.